Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Duluth, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, Los Angeles, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets. So I just want to show you this. This was Time Magazine in January of 2023. It says why ultra-processed foods are so bad for you. Everybody, Time Magazine's finally on the right side of history. They've got their heads on straight. I'm sure they're going to stick with this new health regimen as they move forward. And then August 18th, why one dietitian is speaking up for ultra-processed foods.
It's time somebody did, Jimmy. Stop punching down on ultra-processed food.
They do a complete flip-flop over a year later. What happened in between? Well, what happened in between is Bobby Kennedy went on Fox News and said this about processed foods.
Why is the food coloring in particular bad?
Food coloring, you see here, yellow food coloring, that is a petroleum product. Mm-hmm. It's associated with really, with depression. It's associated with autoimmune injuries and ADHD. Yeah. And red dye also is very bad. In Europe, the same companies are producing the same products, but they're using natural coloring. But here they can get away with it. We have about almost 1,000 chemicals that are in our food that are either outright banned in Europe or actively discouraged. So you wouldn't be able to buy this kind of stuff in Europe. You ask about why it's so cheap, why it's so ubiquitous. It's because we subsidize the worst foods. We subsidize it with about 70% of our food stamp program is to processed foods, which are all poison.
Right. One of the things that's interesting is you'll see on labels, natural flavors, which is this catch-all phrase that I guess was lobbied for, but the ingredients in natural flavors are not really natural.
No. In our country, natural flavors are chemical products. So you can't trust what's on the ingredient label. And the reason for that, again, is government corruption. It's that the agency, the USDA, the FDA have been captured by the industries they're supposed to regulate. And they all have an interest in subsidies and then in mass poisoning the American public.
So that's what happened. So Time Magazine went from telling you the truth about processed food for whatever reason, then Bobby Kennedy actually gets on Fox News, tells the truth about it, and like the next day, all of a sudden, hey, no, processed food's good.
Yeah, and who could be more reliable than a dietitian? That's like a chiropractor. This one chiropractor says vaccines are good.
I mean, what's wrong with Bobby Kennedy, what's wrong with petroleum products? By the time most young men are 14 years old, they've absorbed enough Vaseline to start a grease fire. Come on, am I right? So here, Joe Rogan heard about this, and he went off on it. He went over this article. Watch this.
We have a massive health crisis in this country. The obesity crisis is really legitimate, and it's terrifying that it's so prevalent and that no one's doing anything about it. And this is one of the things that RFK wants to do when he gets into office. Mm-hmm. And he's talking about seed oils, and he's talking about a lot of different things that are like terrible for health, that are ubiquitous in our diet, and to put some regulations on that stuff and to recognize that these are real issues and to inform people that these are real issues and not just let these big food companies just keep. I saw a fucking article today in Time Magazine. Wait
a minute, this Time Magazine is still
Magazine
out there?
Is still out there.
Wow.
See if you can find this cover, this article. It was are super processed foods really bad for you?
Oh fuck.
First of all, I like that they asked the question, Time Magazine. Are processed foods, aren't you supposed to answer the question? You're not supposed to ask the question. Isn't that like Google Maps? That's like Google Maps going, hey, how do you get there?
Well, I like that everybody that works at Time Magazine, all the people that work there, I promise you, shop at Erewhon, and they don't want to get processed foods for themselves.
So here we go. Joe's got more to say about it.
Seriously.
This is the question. Instead of saying,
is fentanyl a bad thing?
Wouldn't it be better to eat healthy?
Yeah.
Which everybody would agree. Are super processed foods really that bad for you? Well, I can help you out there and real quick. Yes. Here it is.
From yesterday.
Aren't as bad as you think. Oh, what if ultra processed food aren't as bad as you think? That's it. Well, they're not. They're a lot worse. They're fucking terrible for you. What kind of bullshit argument is this? This is real. They are really bad for you.
Jessica is passionate about the pupusas from Costco.
Oh God, Jessica. How about have a banana and you get on the treadmill, you fucking idiot. Like, what are we talking about?
I got a bag of pupusas.
It's fucking, we're eating shit that's terrible bad. That's really bad for you.
Sort of what the next thing says, I guess.
Okay. It all started in the summer of 2023 when author and infectious disease physician Dr. Chris Von Tuliken was promoting his book, Ultra Processed People. While writing it, Von Tuliken spent a month eating mostly foods like chips, soda, bagged bread, frozen food, and cereal. What happened to me is exactly what the research says would happen to everyone. Von Tuliken says he felt worse, he gained weight, his hormone levels went crazy, and before and after MRI scans showed signs of changes in his brain. As Von Tuliken saw it, the experiment highlighted the terrible emergency of society's love affair with ultra-processed foods.
Okay, but you have to, this next part is really, is also really, Wilson,
who specialized in working with clients from marginalized groups, groups, was irked. She felt that Von Tuliken's experiment was over-sensationalized and that news coverage of it shamed people who regularly eat processed food. Shamed them.
That's what you got.
That kind of fucking language drives me goddamn crazy. In other words, the vast majority of Americans, particularly the...
So she's worried. So this person's worried about people being shamed for eating poison instead of she's worried about them eating poison.
Is this the one that was being paid off by Nabisco? Because way back when, Breaking Point, Saga did a whole thing about this new dietitian where it's like, no, you could be fat and have a lot of Oreos, and it was like trying to make it racial.
Really?
And that's because, and she was being paid off by Nabisco, it turned out. So I'll bet you that's what this is.
I wonder if this person's being paid off to say that. Okay, let's get back to Joe.
Millions who are food insecure or have limited access to fresh food. They also tend to be lower income and people of color. Yeah, they fucking covered the whole spectrum.
Wilson felt the buzz ignored this food apartheid.
Food apartheid.
Oh, God.
Fucking crazy. As well as the massive diversity of foods that can be considered ultra-processed, a category that includes everything from vegan meat replacements, which, by the way, are really fucking bad for you, and non-dairy milks, which, by the way, are really fucking bad for you, to potato chips and candy, which, by the way, are really fucking bad for you. How can this entire category of foods be something we're supposed to avoid? Because it's not fucking food. It's not nutritious food.
I'm sorry. That's just Joe is being an obesist. That's what I think. He's prejudiced against the obese. By the way, speaking of obese, this is what used to be. Someone, if you were that fat, which is very common today in America, they would put you in the circus.
Wow, every day's the circus now.
That was the world's fattest man in 1890. He was so large enough to be considered a freak show in the circus. That you could find that anywhere today.
Yeah.
Go outside your house, swing a dead cat. You're going to hit somebody who looks like that.
They mass produced those guys.
Yeah, these are mass produced now.
He was a prototype.
Look at that. That used to be considered the world's fattest man.
Yeah. It was just a my 600-pound life. Remember that show, My 600-Pound Life?
Yeah, I wouldn't even. That guy's probably not even 600 pounds. He's probably 450. I say he's probably 450.
Well, right there. But by the end of his life, he hit 700. He did achieve his goals. That's probably something severely wrong with him that now is a common thing, but back then was like, the first of the mutations from the poison in the food.
So Time Magazine got some money. This is my guess. Time Magazine got some money from Nabisco or from some processed food place or a couple of them, or the processed food organization of America, and said, hey, well, tell people it's good. And so they did.
As soon as I heard that racial thing,
and they turned it into a racial thing. They made it. It's like you're a racist if you tell people about how bad processed food is. That means you're racist.
Yeah. No, don't tell the people of color to stop eating poison. You're judging them. Okay.
Okay. Keep eating poison.
But a bunch of these people know this too. That's the thing that's crazy is a company is paying someone to make this some race bullshit.
Americans have diabetes. An estimated 84 million people have pre-diabetes in America,
and that's mostly people of color, I bet.
And they say they don't know it.
Yeah.
Well, if they don't know it, how do they know it? And if you know it, why don't you tell them? If they know it, you should just go tell them, hey, you're pre-diabetic. We figured it out.
They'd be racist.
I get that. Yes, poor communities, communities of color, live in what they call food deserts, and they end up eating a lot more processed food. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't try to get unprocessed food in their neighborhoods.
Right. Well, there'll be activist groups who actively try to keep it out of their neighborhood.
That's good, but that's crazy.
Keep non-processed food out of their neighborhood. That's what all those, they're going to open a Trader Joe's and they go, this is gentrification. All these groups are bullshit. They're all hired by some company that's competition, and they pose it like it's a civil rights thing, and it's not.
Diabetes affects approximately 38.4 million people in the United States, while another estimated 97 have pre-diabetes. So this is from medicine.net. So that's 40, and that's almost like 140 million people. That's almost half the country is either diabetic or pre-diabetic.
Mm-hmm.
And an estimated 8.7 million people in the United States have diabetes and don't even know it. Well, if they don't know it, how do you know it? And if you know it, why don't you tell them? I don't understand this. How do you know they have it and they don't know it?
It's very mysterious science.
Medical expenses for people with diabetes are over 2 times higher than those for people who do not have diabetes. So twice. Those numbers reflect only the population in the United States. Globally, the statistics are staggering. Diabetes is the 8th leading cause of death in the United States. I wonder what the first 7 are. The reason diabetes is increasing can be attributed to, 1, obesity. We just did a video where a doctor was saying it's okay to be obese. Remember that?
Ozempic.
Yes.
That's why we need Ozempic more than ever.
I'll be doing a story on Ozempic on Tuesday. Obesity, lack of that. Midwestern doctor wrote a Substack on obesity. I mean, on Ozempic. You're not going to believe it. So obesity, lack of physical activity, quantitative and qualitative changes in diet, awareness. That's a cause of diabetes. Awareness. Change in diagnostic criteria or aging population. So there's type 2 and type 1. Most people. So type 1 is what you're born with. Type 2 is what you acquire, right? A type 1 is actually called an autoimmune disease.
My friend got the one you're born with. He got it after his Johnson & Johnson shot for 2 weeks.
I've heard
And then he went back to normal, but he had the one you're born. I don't understand how that works.
I've heard stories about that, but of course I can't verify the veracity of those claims. I listen to whatever the FDA and the CDC says. That's whatever they
pulled
say
that off the
real.
market. I mean, Johnson & Johnson. I'm not talking about the healthy mRNA.
Oh, no, of course. The Johnson & Johnson, they had to take it off the market.
Yeah. Get more mRNA in your body for sure. I mean,
exposure to certain viral infections, such as mumps or other environmental toxins, may serve to trigger abnormal antibody response that cause damage to the pancreas cells where insulin is made. Some of the antibodies seen in type 1 diabetes include, so you can also, really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that. Type 2. Go ahead.
How many years can you go on doing this before you have to say it's on purpose and not just I mean, like, how much do they have to do before people go, oh, they're actually against me actively and everything's about exploiting me in some way?
So a major feature of type 2 diabetes is a lack of sensitivity to insulin by the cells of the body, particularly the fat and muscle cells. Okay. There's a known steady decline in beta cell. Wow. So, okay. So this is all because you're eating crap. Mm-hmm. It occurs mostly in individuals over 30, and the incidence increases with age, but the alarming number of patients with type 2 diabetes are barely in their teen years. Most of these cases are a direct result of poor eating habits, higher body weight, and a lack of exercise. Yeah, like, also known as being an American.
Yeah. These people that run this stuff, they think like you deserve it. They're like, well, so it's like ultimate eugenics,
Yeah.
The most Nazi-esque, like, oh, well, if you're fat and stupid, you deserve what you get. It's not my fault for putting it out there.
That is amazing. Time Magazine did that. Just a little over a year apart. Hey, these are bad for you. Are they bad for you? I got to start speaking up for ultra processed foods.
Well, one dietitian is speaking up for racial reasons.
Yeah,
that's really perverse. That's really
that is really a shame.
Sickening thing.
Hey, come see us on tour. We'll be in Duluth, Georgia, Jacksonville, Florida, Los Angeles, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for those tickets.